Hi, I'm Jimmy Butler, and welcome to the Agile Digest, where we have right-sized topics covered in just minutes. Today's topic is when traditional waterfall makes sense. It's about 5 minutes. Enjoy. You're probably very familiar with the terminology of traditional waterfall development versus agile development, and so we're going to cover that real quick just to level set. So as waterfall indicates, it's where each phase kind of flows into the next. One doesn't start until the other one finishes, and so you do all your discovery requirements up front for the entire project, and then you design everything that you're going to do, and then you go off and you develop everything you're going to do, then you test it, and then ultimately you deploy it. And that whole process, project could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. With an agile methodology, you're not trying to do all of the requirements and design up front. You're taking care of the requirements and design of what you need to do next. What's the next right thing to do? And so in short iterations, and Scrum calls them sprints, it could be a 2-week, it could be a 4-week, where you're going to bring in requirements, you're going to design them, develop them, test them, and deploy them, all within the short iteration cycles. And so you're able to produce product into the hands of users on a more rapid basis. You're also able to learn from that and bring it back in and make the adjustments necessary. Whereas in waterfall, you kind of lock yourself into the requirements and design, you go off and develop, and then everything happens at the end, and change is harder to do. But that's the differences between the two. Now on the Agile Digest here, we talk a lot about Agile and how great Agile is and why you should do Agile. But in this particular digest, we're going to talk about when would traditional waterfall make sense. Reason number one for when waterfall might make sense, it's when your culture and your skill set is traditional. So the organizational mindset is very traditional, the teams have no knowledge or experience with Agile at all, and the resistance to change would be high. And so the idea here is that teams will have more success with what they know and with what they understand. Reason number two for when waterfall might make sense is when project risk is very low. By nature of the waterfall process, you don't get to testing and user acceptance until the end. And if it's a long project, that's not a really good time to find out that you've got something wrong or something doesn't work. And so by nature, waterfall carries that risk all the way to the end. So you'll want to do waterfall when you know risk is low and there's a lot of predictability in your project. Reason number three for when waterfall might make sense is when you've done this before. What you have is a repeatable project. Now, if you're in custom software development, well, that's never the case. But maybe you have a software product that you implement over and over again for clients. And so the process is generally the same every time. And so when you have something that you do on a repeated basis and there's very little change to it, waterfall might make sense. Reason number four for when waterfall might make sense is when your requirements are not likely to change. Now with custom software development, that's hard to imagine, but you might have software upgrades, like you're upgrading all your Windows operating systems or your hardware upgrades, you're swapping out your laptops or your servers, and obviously roads and bridges, where there's really fixed requirements and there's no reason for it to change. Because with waterfall, it's more expensive to change because as you invest all this time in design and development and then later figure out that's not what you want or what you needed, the cost of that change becomes high. So you want where requirements are not likely to change. Reason number five for when waterfall might make sense is when transparency is not important. So we're all familiar with the waterfall process where the client is very much involved in the requirements, but once those requirements are signed off on, the team does a deep dive and goes in and produces the product and doesn't resurface again until the end when the client's re-engaged to see what was delivered. And so during that time, there's really no transparency into what's being delivered. Is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? And from a management perspective, sure, you have status reports and EVM reports and things like that, but those things are too easily manipulated to make the project look like it's doing better than what it actually is. And then the timing of which those things come out make more of a reactive state rather than being a proactive state. So if you need transparency, if you need the client to see the product in motion, if you need management to keep a better pulse on it, then that shorter deep dive by iteration is more appropriate from an Agile perspective. But if you do have a project that's low on risk, as you've done it before, it's really not a lot to be concerned about, and transparency therefore is not that important, then waterfall might be the approach for you. Well, that concludes this digest. I always welcome your feedback, so please email me at the email address on the screen. Thank you.